What would you do if you were handcuffed, humiliated, and thrown in jail by your own officers after rushing from your mother's heart surgery? Only to discover that the two cops who destroyed your dignity had no idea they just arrested the woman who would soon become their new police chief. Where are you watching from? After subscribing, comment below before we dive into today's story. Rita Williams pulled her BMW into the Shell gas station just after 10 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Her mother had just survived heart surgery at Mercy General Hospital. After hours of waiting and praying, she felt drained but relieved. She wore dark jeans, a gray hoodie, and old sneakers. Comfort mattered more than appearance tonight. Her new title, Chief of Police for Riverside, was still secret. The public announcement wouldn't come for another week. So to anyone watching, she looked like any ordinary woman stopping for gas on her way home. As she filled her tank, her mind stayed at the hospital with her mother. She didn't notice the patrol car at first. The black and white cruiser rolled across the empty lot like a hunting shark. Inside sat Sergeant Mike Patterson and Officer Brad Collins. Patterson had built his reputation on aggressive arrests and numbers that impressed his supervisors. Collins was younger, hungry, and always chasing overtime to pay his mounting bills. Both men had been praised for being productive. Those citizens whispered another word, ruthless. Patterson nudged Collins and pointed at Rita. Look at her. Matches the description from last week's robbery. Black female, hoodie, medium build. Collins leaned forward, his sharp features twisting with excitement. Could be our suspect. Plus, look at that car. BMW. Expensive ride for this neighborhood. Something doesn't add up. Patterson's lips curled into a cold smile. Easy arrest. Make our numbers and clean up the streets. Neither officer looked closer or considered alternatives. Their minds were made up. To them, Rita wasn't a human being with a story. She was just another quota to fill. They boxed her car in with their cruiser. Rita saw them too late. Her heart pounded. She knew this pattern from countless reports she'd read as an administrator. Patterson emerged from the car with predatory confidence, his thick frame moving with deliberate swagger. His hand rested on his weapon, not from necessity, but from habit. "Ma'am, step away from the vehicle and keep your hands visible," Patterson commanded, his voice carrying satisfaction rather than concern. Collins circled wide with nervous energy, his movements quick and jerky like someone warming up for a fight. Rita raised her hands slowly, pulse racing. 25 years of wearing a badge, and she'd never felt this powerless. "Officers, I think there's been a mistake." "No mistake," Collins interrupted sharply. "We've been watching you. Your behavior matches someone we're looking for." The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows. Rita's mouth went dry. "What exactly am I suspected of?" she asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. Patterson stepped closer, using his bulk to intimidate. "Suspicious behavior, loitering in a high-crime area, driving an expensive vehicle inconsistent with neighborhood demographics." Rita knew this was wrong, but she also knew arguing would only make things worse. "My name is Rita Williams," she said clearly, hoping recognition might dawn. "I am the chief of police for this department." The silence felt like thunder about to break. Then Patterson began laughing. Not cruel laughter, but genuine amusement at something so absurd it seemed like comedy. "Oh, this is rich," Patterson said, turning to his partner with delight. "We've got ourselves a comedian tonight. Chief of police? What's next, you're the mayor?" Collins joined the laughter with eager enthusiasm. "That's creative. Usually we get I'm a lawyer or my dad's a cop. But chief of police? That's new." Patterson's amusement turned darker. "Sure you are. And I bet you've got some fancy fake ID to prove it, right? Probably picked it up from some back alley printer. The accusation hit Rita like a physical blow. But Patterson wasn't finished. You know what I think? He continued, stepping closer. I think you're one of those wannabes who watches too much TV. Thinks she can talk her way out of anything with some story. Collins stepped closer, sensing his partner moving in for the kill. Turn around and assume the position. We can sort out your Hollywood fantasies at the station. Rita Williams, the soon-to-be chief of police for Riverside, slowly turned and placed her hands on her warm car hood. As the handcuffs clicked around her wrists with unnecessary force, Patterson's satisfied chuckle echoed in the night air. What none of them knew was that Walter Johnson, the night manager at the Shell station, was watching everything on his security monitors. Walter recognized Rita from community meetings and newspaper photos. As the patrol cars disappeared, he made a decision that would change everything. He copied the security footage and locked it in his safe. The Riverside Police Department had been Rita's second home for years. Tonight, she entered through the prisoner entrance for the first time in her career. The booking area assaulted her senses. Industrial cleaner mixed with stale coffee and human desperation. Fluorescent lights blazed mercilessly overhead. Empty your pockets, Collins instructed. Rita complied, her movements restricted by tight handcuffs. Her wallet, keys, phone, and her mother's silver cross formed a sad collection on the metal table. Night Sergeant Rodriguez looked up from his paperwork. Rita recognized him, but he showed no sign of recognition. What have we got? Suspicious behavior at the Shell station, Patterson reported with satisfaction. Subject claims to be the chief of police. The room erupted in laughter. Officers at nearby desks looked up, joining the cruel amusement. Rodriguez slapped his knee. Chief of police? That's a new one. Last week, a guy told me he was undercover FBI. Patterson leaned close to Rita's ear. So, Chief, you want the executive suite tonight? The laughter bounced off concrete walls like bullets, each echo stripping away Rita's dignity. In the corner, Officer Maria Santos stood frozen. At 26, she still carried herself with the eager posture of someone trying to prove herself. But tonight, her confidence cracked. Maria recognized Rita immediately. She remembered her guest lectures on constitutional rights and community policing. Rita had been the instructor who made her believe good policing was possible. Their eyes met across the crowded room. Maria saw recognition flash across Rita's face. Her heart pounded as she realized what was happening. But Maria was still on probation. Patterson and Collins were senior officers who could end her dream with a few words about her being unreliable. Speaking up could destroy everything she'd worked for. She looked away and hurried past, shame following her like a weight. Well, Patterson said, noticing the exchange. Looks like our chief might know one of our rookies. Interesting. The suggestion was clear and disgusting, carrying implications that made Rita's jaw clench. Across the room, Officer Jennifer Hayes watched with growing discomfort. At 51, with 23 years on the force, Hayes had seen this pattern before. She recognized the injustice, but fear held her tongue. Fear of losing her pension just 5 years before retirement. The cell door slammed shut with finality. Rita sat on the narrow bench, staring at her hands marked with red impressions from the handcuffs. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel the full weight of what had happened. If she, with all her authority and knowledge, could be reduced to this, what hope did ordinary citizens have? Rita walked through the department the next morning feeling like a stranger. Whispered conversations stopped when she appeared. "Ladies and gentlemen," Rita began in the briefing room, I want to address last night's events directly. I was arrested at the Shell station by Sergeant Patterson and Officer Collins. I was handcuffs processed and held for 6 hours. Murmurs rippled through the room. I am ordering a full investigation. Sergeant Patterson and Officer Collins are suspended pending the outcome. Several officers gasped. Captain Williams stood up, face pale. Chief Williams, shouldn't we wait for the investigation? Captain, I'm not suspending them based on allegations. I'm suspending them based on what I personally experienced. Within hours, news leaked to the media. Headlines read, "New police chief arrests own officers." The police union called a press conference. Patterson and Collins stepped before cameras with their lawyer. "These allegations are not only false," Patterson said with practiced sincerity. "They're dangerous distortions of what actually happened. We responded to suspicious activity." Collins stepped forward. "When we tried to make contact, this individual became agitated and confrontational. We tried to de-escalate, but the subject became increasingly aggressive. The lies were delivered with such conviction that even Rita felt doubt. Conservative outlets picked up the story. Social media exploded with competing hashtags. Public opinion divided sharply along racial lines. The war for public opinion intensified. Union President Fletcher held daily press conferences, portraying Patterson and Collins as victim heroes. "These men have served faithfully for years," Fletcher declared. "Are we really going to destroy their careers because of one misunderstanding?" Anonymous sources provided damaging information, painting Rita as an outsider who'd never fit in. Death threats arrived at Rita's home, forcing security measures. Her 18-year-old son Malik came home with a black eye after defending his mother at school. "They said you made it all up," Malik told her, voice thick with pain. "They said you hate white people." Rita's heart broke looking at her son's battered face. The fight for justice was putting her family in danger. 2 months later, an independent hearing convened in City Hall. The courtroom was packed beyond capacity with national media present. Retired federal judge Margaret Whitmore called the proceedings to order. Union President Fletcher delivered the opening with polished skill. "We are here because of a tragic misunderstanding that has been twisted into something it never was." When Rita took the stand, the courtroom fell silent. "Your Honor, I want to be clear about what happened that night. I posed no threat, committed no crime, and did nothing suspicious." Defense attorney Torres began a vicious cross-examination. "Chief Williams, don't you have a personal agenda against traditional policing methods?" The trap was being constructed. Rita wasn't a victim, but the orchestrator of a setup to eliminate productive officers. When Patterson testified, he was calm and convincing. "We received reports of suspicious activity. When we arrived, we observed an individual acting nervously, looking around constantly, making furtive movements." The lies flowed smoothly, filled with police jargon that sounded authoritative. On the 4th day, as proceedings seemed to tilt toward Patterson and Collins, Officer Maria Santos made a decision that would change everything. During lunch recess, she approached Judge Whitmore with trembling hands. "Your Honor, I have testimony relevant to this case. I was there that night. I saw what really happened." That afternoon, Maria took the oath, her hand shaking violently. "I'm a patrol officer, 6 months out of the academy," she testified. "Did you recognize Chief Williams that night?" Maria took a deep breath. "Yes, sir. I recognized her immediately. She was one of my instructors at the police academy." A ripple of surprise moved through the courtroom. "Did you inform the arresting officers?" The silence stretched for nearly a full minute as Maria struggled with shame and fear. "No, sir, I didn't. Because I was scared. I'm still on probation, and they're both senior officers. I was afraid speaking up would hurt my career. Her honesty struck like lightning. Here was a young officer laying bare the culture of fear that protected misconduct. What did you observe during Chief Williams' processing? I saw her being completely cooperative and respectful. She answered every question calmly. She didn't resist or argue. She was treated like a criminal when she had done absolutely nothing wrong. Did you hear the officers discussing the incident? Yes. They were laughing about it, making jokes about her claim to be police chief. Sergeant Patterson said it would be a good story to tell other officers. The courtroom erupted as the true nature of that night emerged. Torres launched a vicious attack, trying to destroy Maria's credibility. But Maria held firm. "Ma'am, I may be new to this job, but I know right from wrong, and what I saw that night was wrong." But Maria's testimony might not have been enough. What changed everything was Walter Johnson appearing at the courthouse door during the final recess. "Your Honor," Walter said, "I have video evidence of what really happened that night." The large screen flickered to life, showing security footage from the Shell station. The footage was devastating. It showed Rita moving calmly, displaying no suspicious behavior. It showed her complying immediately with commands, speaking respectfully throughout. Most damning, it showed the casual cruelty with which she was treated, the unnecessary force, the mocking gestures and laughter. The silence was absolute as truth played out on screen, stripping away every lie. Jennifer Hayes suddenly stood up, tears streaming. "I can't stay silent anymore. I've watched this corruption go on too long." Judge Whitmore allowed Hayes to testify about the quota system that motivated the officers' actions, revealing a department culture that prioritized arrests over justice. 3 weeks later, Judge Whitmore delivered her ruling in the packed courtroom. After careful consideration of all evidence, this court finds that the arrest of Chief Rita Williams was conducted without probable cause, in violation of her constitutional rights. Sergeant Mike Patterson is hereby terminated, effective immediately, with forfeiture of all pension benefits. Patterson sat stone-faced as his career crumbled. Officer Brad Collins is suspended without pay for 1 year and will undergo comprehensive retraining. Officer Maria Santos is commended for her courage and will receive full whistleblower protections. Maria wept as applause filled the courtroom. The Riverside Police Department will implement immediate reforms, including mandatory body cameras, elimination of arrest quotas, and regular community oversight. When Rita addressed the courtroom after the verdict, she carried herself with dignity, but also weariness. Today, justice was served. But let's be clear. This victory means that when officers abuse power, there can be consequences. It means truth can overcome institutional forces. But it doesn't mean our work is finished. 6 months later, changes in Riverside were visible but incomplete. Body cameras had been implemented. The quota system was officially eliminated. Some progress was undeniable. On a cold December evening, Rita found herself back at the Shell station, stopping after a community meeting. As she filled her tank, she noticed a young officer helping an elderly woman who had locked her keys in her car. The officer was patient and respectful, declining her offer of money. It was a small moment that rarely made news. But for Rita, it represented something more important than court rulings. The possibility that policing could be about service rather than control. The road ahead was long and uncertain. There would be setbacks and resistance, victories and defeats. But as Rita drove home, she allowed herself to believe that change was possible. Not easy, not quick, not guaranteed, but possible. Justice was not a destination, but a journey requiring the quiet determination of ordinary people doing the right thing day after day, until doing right became normal. The journey was far from over, but at least now they were moving in the right direction.